Once more in front of the bricks, dear friends. This is Podscast. I am Poddy Wilson. You are listening to my podcast, and thank you once again for rejoining me on this sweltering week in June. Good Lord. How glad am I that I'm up in Scotland right now. I keep seeing footage of people in London giving each other advice on how to survive the heat wave. I'm so glad I'm not down there. I was down in London last year when the heat wave was on, and it was torturous. It was purgatorial. It was just a room full of completely static air, and no matter how much you tried to do with the fan, it just didn't move. It didn't make you any cooler. It might move at a sort of sedate pace around the room, but just stirring hot air. It's not nice. You just feel there's no reprieve, particularly when I was walking back on Wandsworth Road at the end of a day. It just was like clinging to you, that horrible air feeling. And listen, we're not free from it up here in Scotland. There's heat up here too. I'm just glad that it's not in the mid 30s, because that I think would actually kill me. I also think we experience heat much more intensely up in Scotland than in England. I don't know if it's to do with altitude or with just the curvature of the earth in the relation to the sun. I don't know. There's bound to be some science on it. I couldn't tell you what it actually is, but I just think the heat hits way more, and the UV definitely hits way more as well. Every time I go up, particularly further north, up to the Hebrides, I come back looking like a lobster, and that's not what we want. But thank you all the same for joining me. Maybe you're outside right now. Maybe you're having a little topless sunbathe. I wish I could do that right now. That is the one downside of not having a private garden, having a communal garden, is they can't get the cherubs out to brown them evenly in the sun. So maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe you're going to a Lido. Maybe you're driving with your open top convertible, and the wind is rustling through your hair like Bridget Jones in Bridget Jones's Diary. Yes, it was the first one that happens in. But it's been a bumper week. It's been a bumper week, everyone. Everything's been going on. And as such, I didn't really note anything down at the time because I was in the moment. All right. I wasn't thinking, oh, this would be great for the podcast. I don't go through life thinking this is great podcast fodder. I did in weeks 1 and 2, but I've kind of relaxed on that now. I was in the moment, so I wasn't noting stuff down, so I've had to do it kind of retrospectively and remember what I was doing every day and kind of note it on my little plan here. So I am wary that I might miss something out, and I'm wary that I might miss out talking about the sort of important conversations that weren't the descriptors of the day. So for instance, I've got like sauna on Saturday. That was the thing that we did, but the things that we talked about, I'm worried that I'm going to forget to include them because it didn't occur to me when I was writing my notes, the specific conversations that we had at that point in time. I've remembered one of them, and that's the most important conversation, and we will get to that later on. But in the meantime, roll titles. Okay, let me talk you through my outfit choices right now as well, because if you're watching this in the visual form, you're going to be thinking, why are you wearing a blazer? I'll tell you why I'm wearing a blazer. It's linen, and that's light. And I actually feel cooler having a linen blazer on than I do to have my arms out exposed to the thick air. Also, this studio is like famously very cold, and when we were doing all our sort of Hadriatic Divide stuff and like doing our tests in the winter, it was freezing, and we've got the heater that would just sort of very octogenarianly chuff out warm air very slowly into a small select space that would then take an hour to diffuse throughout the greater room. Now that it is actually summer and we want it to be cool, it's warm. It's warm in here, but that's fine. I can make do and mend. But also the reason two more reasons I'm wearing this jacket. First of all, it's grandma's and it's cool as fuck, and mum has a matching one, so that's the 3 generations of us wearing the jacket, which is a lovely thought to have. You know, the inherited nature of fashion sense. I think that's lovely. Also, it's coral and it matches my skirt. Oh, here's an extra reason for you. Coral is the away kit colour for Scotland, and the match is taking place tonight at time of recording. Hope it goes well, boys. Hope we absolutely pummel Brazil, the country that has famously won quite a lot of World Cups. I believe we can do it. I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. Maybe the Americans were on something with that chant. Anyway, the highlights of this week. The highlight was Sophie coming up to see me. Hi, Sophie, I know you're listening. Hi, Peanut. Also, disclaimer that we don't know why the nickname Peanut came up, but she has been Peanut in my contacts for some time, and I forgot to mention that to Jordan, and he did get quite confused on the subway when he was like, why do you keep saying Peanut? She's Peanut to me. So she came up, and I planned an itinerary which is so unlike me. But normally when people come up to visit, then Kieran takes the helm and we're in his van car, his VAR, and he'll take us to all the exciting locations and have a lovely, lovely course of events planned out for us to do together as a group. Now, when it falls to me, I have to step up to the plate. This is my first time being the solo tour guide of the west coast of Scotland, and I really had to step up to the challenge and make good of it. And I feel like I did. I feel like I had a really nice itinerary planned out, which included going to a wild sauna, which I love. I'm kind of I might text Jordan and ask if he wants to go to another one. I love a wild sauna. We could go to the one in Prestwick or Loch Winnock. They could be good. The Prestwick one, though, I'm nervous of because the boys went maybe a month and a bit ago. And it was like a lovely day. We're like, oh, let's go to the beach. Beach isn't far away. And it's when we just come back from Skye. So that's now a couple of months ago. And I'd been to the sauna in Skye only a couple of days before, and I was like, I feel like I'm kind of saunaed out. You guys go ahead, but I'm just going to sit and read my book, which, by the way, at the time was Lolita. We all remember. And Jordan was like, you can't read that book in public. You are sat next to a children's park. You cannot read that book right now. I did, but I very sort of subtly hid the cover like that. I was being discreet. But the boys went into the sauna and they said the temperature got up to 120 degrees. They came out afterwards and they were walking up the what's it called, the promenade to me, and they were going, so we don't feel right. Something's wrong inside. We don't feel good inside. We feel kind of weird. And they said it felt as though they had been like browned in oil on the inside, having their innards cooked by this 120 degree sauna. I didn't even know that was a temperature that people could survive at. I also, and we'll get onto this later, I'm staggered by the fact that we can survive in temperatures of up to 120 degrees. Evidently, that's what I meant to say. But we feel the heat so much more in like a 30 degree theatre, and we will get onto that later on because that's what I did last night. Now, Sophie arrived on Thursday. Okay, so we remember last week I had a go at yoga. It hurt my muscles. Oh, it was today. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't go. It really hurt me. I just don't think yoga's for me. It's the fact that we were in I can't get over this. We were in a cold room and we just got straight into stretching. There was no like warming up the body. There was no getting blood pumping around. None of that, which I'm so aware is what you're supposed to do. So I was going, this doesn't feel right. And obviously in the days that followed that, my legs were extremely stiff. And I was going, that can't be right. That can't be what we're supposed to do. Much as it was nice to get up super early in the morning and get things done. However, as I said, it also made me incredibly sleepy for the time that followed after that. However, the day after that, which was the Thursday, I went to Zumba and my muscles really hurt. I was having to push through the pain. And it was the usual instructor, which was nice because the last time I went to a Zumba at this particular gym, it was a different instructor and she just was throwing too much choreography at it. And part of the joy of Zumba is like pattern recognition and being able to know what comes ahead. It's very, very similar to Just Dance. It's filling that gap in my life where the Just Dance left. Because Max and I were massively into that. It was that and Dance Central on the Xbox 360 Connect. Hello, upper middle class. We loved that. We were so good at it. We smashed Rasputin and Land of a Thousand Dances. They were probably the top two, but they fucking wore you out. And I love that. I love just following the person and you've got the little thing at the bottom that's alerting you with the use of a symbol as to what dance move comes next. Sometimes it's quite hard to tell just from the little stick guy what's coming next, but broadly you have an idea of what the pattern's going to be. And that was what I also enjoyed from this lady Sharon Zumba, which we didn't have when the other lady came in, and she was just doing like a full out jazz Latin routine, and I was going, I don't know what's coming next. And that means I'm mostly just kind of dithering and watching you to try and pick up what's coming next, but the second you've done it, you've moved on to the next thing. That's not really going to help me. I love just like, especially because a lot of the moves are trying to engage a certain part of the body. Like you actually do feel that benefit when you're repeating the pattern 4 or 8 times. So that I much prefer. So I was relieved to see Sharon. Yes, Sharon. Relieved she shall. I was relieved to see Sharon come into the room. The room, however, was the problem because it was a windowless dance studio, as so many dance studios are. And clearly there had been a handful of classes in that room before this Zumba one, and an amount of heat had built up. Heat, humidity, let's say sweat. There was sweat in the room was kind of sweating, and it was this like thick cushioning air, and there were these 2 Totally fans in the corner. And something like how I say Toti, that was what Sharon said as well. These tweety fans in the corner, and they again doing like a London fan, just not blowing much towards us. You had to fully like face the direction of it and lean forward. I don't know how much of that the microphone picked up. Lean forward to try and get the air to go towards you. So that was a bit of an uphill battle, but I do think the benefits were so much greater from the room being warm and your body having to work harder and like sweating more. I just feel like I got so much more out of it. And in particular, there's this one dance that is very jumpy. And what's lovely is that Sharon will always say, don't push yourselves if you're not up to jumping. You don't have to jump. You can just do it as a step. I love to jump. I'm 24 years old and I love to jump. And I've mentioned before that my favorite song in Zumba was Golden. We've not done Golden in months now. I kind of feel like going up to her and being like, we just add that back into the playlist, because that was the best dance that we did. But she's added some new choreography in because it's coming into a new Zumba season. She said it's part of the new season or something, and she's got these handful of new dances that we're slowly incorporating one by one into the playlist, and there's quite a lot of jumpy ones, which is great. The hardest one actually is not a jumpy one, it's a steppy one, because when you're just continually stepping on your toes and sort of going through the motions of the ball of the foot, and it's very quick steps, and you're just doing that for like 5 minutes straight, that burns the calves. And there's this one that kind of has an Italian, Spanish Italian, less Mediterranean vibe to it. The reason I say Italian is because there's a bit of shouting, like audience participation, which is always, how do I feel about it? I'm warming to it now. That was a real sticking point for me when I started with the Zumba, was that I didn't want to do yelling when I'm jumping. And I still think that in a warm-up, it shouldn't come in the warm-up. It should be like dance number 4 at the very earliest that you ask us to make any kind of noise. And this one comes towards the end, because this is kind of in the last push of just doing like cardio essentially. And you have to go, hey, I just whack my nails. Anyway, you go, hey, and your legs going like that, and that's why I call it the Italian one, because it reminds me of like just a very vivacious Italian waiter kind of vibe. But the jumping one is really great. It's kind of how would I describe that? It makes me feel like a big cuddly crab, because the arms are kind of coming out the side like a pair of pincers. And then it's like jumping and kicking and punching the air, which just makes me feel good. Also, I've not even mentioned the best one. There's a song, I was quite devastated to discover this song is Meghan Trainor, because I'm not a Meghan Trainor person, and I find her voice, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be mean. She says, about to say, I find her voice really annoying. Just the sound, her sound is not for me. And listen, there are plenty of sounds that aren't for me. I'm not a, what don't I like? I like quite a lot of stuff, to be honest. Doo-wop is in like a small category of things. Do you know what I don't like? I really don't like the Beach Boys. I know they're so popular. I know they're like universally beloved. I can't stand the Beach Boys. I hate the noise they make. I really don't like, I don't like it. I don't know, and I don't know why. That's the thing that bothers me. I hate disliking something and not really understanding why. I don't know if it's the close harmony thing. There's kind of a vintagey sound to it that I just don't like. I don't like it. God only knows what I be. It kind of just, it sounds like mopey to me. No matter, even everybody was surfing, even that, like, I know it's a happy song, it just sounds mopey. It really like grates on me. It sounds like nails down a chalkboard. I can't bear the Beach Boys. And with Light and Love to Meghan Trainor, her doo-woppy sound is also a thing that I really can't abide. However, this one song in Zumba that's like, I don't sweat, I shimmer. I don't sweat. Yeah, I just shimmer. And it's so cringecore. It's so cringecore, but that's perfect for Zumba. Meghan Trainor should have been making songs for Zumba this whole time. That's the perfect avenue for her music. That's the perfect vessel and venue for the sound that she's creating. And the dance is very heavily inspired by sort of drag culture. And there's the bit, how do you even describe this? You sort of windmill one of your arms up, elbow forward, and then you like rotate on your hip on your supporting leg and kick your other leg out and turn out. So it's like it's like that, and you see people in drag do it all the time, and that makes me feel really cool. And then they make like, there's this bit where it's just like 4 walks forwards and then 4 walks on the spot, and you're going like 1, 2, 3, 4, and it makes me feel like Madonna. And it's like, again, super cringy. You have to lean into the sassiness, but that's the fun of it. And I did go to Zumba again on Monday night, and that was again super warm. It was a different venue this time. It was like a sports hall rather than a dance studio, and they had the doors open and just no air was getting in. It was the exact same thing. I do think though it's useful to have the mirror. That was the benefit of the dance studio, is being able to see my form. The consequence of that is that I realize now how much time I spend at Zumba with my mouth wide open. I didn't know that was my Zumba face, but the whole time I'm going mouth just like kind of baring teeth. Very unappealing. Glad Kieran hasn't seen me do that, because to be honest, I would find that a big turn off if I was him. I know he's more generous in his spirit than that, but all the same, I don't want to risk it, because I don't think anyone would be very drawn to me going So we were preparing for Sophie arriving on Thursday, and we were going through the big cleanup. Now, as I say, the flat isn't like, it's not, listen, we're not going to be on any kind of hoarding program. It's not that level. We're not going to need like a super cleaner to come in. But do we live kind of like slobs? Yeah. And we kind of live like slobs in an American sitcom. We're like Joey and Chandler. That's the vibe we're going for. So it's not, it's not dire, but we needed a little spring clean. And there had been something in my room that had bothered me for a few days prior. And it was that every time I walked to a certain part of the room, I was like, it smells like poo. It smells like poo in this bit of the room. And I can't quite figure out why. To the point where I was like, have I shat myself? I started to grow convinced that I was like secretly shitting myself and having no idea. I was like, is it when I bend down? Is this the smell I can smell when I bend down? No, it wasn't. It took until the Thursday for me to be on a Zoom call, but to be on a WhatsApp video call with Kieran. Zoom call, how formal. And I was like, is there something that smells in this room? Like, what is it? Was it? And he was like sort of panning around. He went, have you emptied the flowers in that vase that has been there for like 3 weeks now? And I went, oh fuck, no I haven't. And Kieran had very lovingly got me a bouquet of flowers from the florist on our street, which is so nice. And he got a mixture of yellow and magenta ones. He got the magenta ones because I've been wearing a lot of magenta recently, because that was my grandma's colour, and I have adopted many of her magenta clothes into my wardrobe. And yellow because I used to buy myself yellow roses when I was at uni as my like special treat to myself and my like little boost. So he got me yellow ones and magenta ones. How nice is that? But they were dead by now. They were dead, unfortunately, and very stinky. What is that? When bouquet water it was like black sludge. It was so foul. And also in this is on Kieran, this wasn't on me or Jordan, but Kieran had put in a load of rocks at the bottom of this vase. So when we were trying to dip the water out, we were like trying to keep the rocks in, so we were doing it really slowly, and the air was emanating from the vase. So we started off trying to pour the water into the toilet, and I was like carrying this vase to the toilet and go there's real like horrible sick noises. It's the worst. My eyes are watering just remembering it. It's the worst smell that I have ever smelled my whole life. And we were trying to dip it in the loo, and Jordan came in. And it was as I was tipping it, it was making the smell sort of spring up out into nose level air. And it like hit Jordan in the face as he was walking towards me. And he went, oh. And then I was like, fuck, there's rocks in this. We can't pour it down the toilet. There's tons of rocks. But I'm just going to end up pouring them down the loo. And then we had to take it in the sink. Jordan was like, here, I'll take it. He's like pulling his shirt over his nose, carrying the vase into the other room. And then I was like panic texting Kieran going, are the rocks important to you? Can we just get rid of the rocks? It'll be so much easier if we can just throw the rocks away. To be honest, I don't think there's any salvaging them. I don't think there's any like cleaning the smell off these rocks. I think that's permeated them forever. They're stuck with this now. And he's like, yeah, get rid of it. Meanwhile, Jordan's like trying to tip the vase full of rocks into the bin, covering his nose. What a grotty life I do lead with my miserable flower water. So that was gross. Then Sophie arrived in the evening. She arrived midway through a pre-transmit sort of pre-party event gig that Sister Mads was on the lineup for. It was a bunch of bands that were going to perform at Transmit that weekend. I didn't manage to get tickets, but that was also meant that I could spend more time with my Sophie. So that was a win-win for all round. And also this gave me the opportunity to see Sister Mads do the set with obviously a different drummer, not Kieran. Yeah. That was bittersweet. It's bittersweet not to see my giant curly blonde boy behind the drums doing all his faces and singing all the words and going 601, 601, and invariably taking his top off and maybe throwing his shirt out to me. Yeah, that was missing. But all in all, a great vibe. It was a really fun show. Glad I got to see that, and glad I got to get up. And very glad that I got to show it to Sophie as well. That was exciting for her to see this part of my life that is so big now, as being a Sister Mads groupie, being at the barrier and doing all the yelling at Maddie and doing all the, run, all the audience interaction bits. Love that. Now on Friday, Sophie and I were both doing work in the day, and also congratulations because she's handed in her notice. Woo! This is such an exciting time to be part of Sophie's life. Everything's coming up peanut. It's all going on. I'm so excited for her. She's going to Germany in September, doing a master's there, which is the coolest thing I've ever heard of. A little bit of fluff in the air there, sorry. That's so cool. And so she's just got this like free spirit energy. Just anything goes. Let's try something new. Let's go on a surfing holiday to Morocco, solo trip, staying in a hostel, going surfing every day. Why the fuck not? How cool is that? Anyway, so this is a really great moment in time for her, and it's so exciting to be in her orbit. And then in the evening after work had wrapped up, because also I was editing my social clips, and I hope you're all enjoying them and liking them and interacting with them. That night was the Scotland game against Morocco, and we went to the Clutha because they were going to be showing the match on the projector. Now, here's the thing. We never got to that point in the evening. It started off so well. We had our lovely pizza, and I housed that thing. I put it away. I put it under lock and key in the safe. That was for some reason, it felt like a bigger pizza than usual, and I've housed those things before. It felt like more of a struggle today. And also today at that point in time. And we were having chats throughout. So I felt like, it was getting cold kind of quickly. And I was like trying to ram it in my mouth before it's getting cold. So I was eating more quickly. That was the first error that I made at that point in time. And then we were on the Tenants and having a lovely time. There's a young man there who was singing all his acoustic stuff. And he did an original that we really liked. And then he did, what was the other song that he did at the end? Oh, Big Black Horse and a Cherry Tree. Woo-hoo. Does everyone know that song? Woo-hoo. Originally done with a loop pedal, but he did it without the loop pedal and it was still really fun. Really lovely voice. And Sophie was like, should we ask him to come and sit with us? And I was like, fuck it. Yeah, why not? Live La Vida Loca. And he did, and he came and sat with us and it was really fun. And he was telling us all about Kelburn Garden Party, which I'm so desperate to go to. He was the third person in 24 hours who had been like, you're going to Kelburn Garden Party, right? Because that's where the magic happens. Everyone has a mad story about what happened there. We were talking to a guy who was like, yeah, they had this like massive coffin and everyone's writing down their sins and confessions and they put them in and then burnt it at the end. And then I wound up in the woods and there were a couple of wizards there and I had to answer their riddle and do a puzzle. And then there was a pixie jumping about and I was like, oh, okay, so drugs? And he was like, no, it was just all this stuff out there. It sounds crazy and I need to get there somehow. I need to figure out a way to get in. I need to figure out a way. Anyway, so that was a lovely time talking to Ewan, this musician. And then afterwards was Mothership. Now I was really excited because I have actually seen Mothership before because I'd been in Edinburgh at some point last year when Kieran was doing a wedding gig. So obviously I couldn't be in the room because I'm not invited to the wedding. So I was just mooching about in Edinburgh, killing some time in the evening. And he was like, well, you could go to Stramash because they have gigs on every single night and you could just go in free entry and have a lovely drink there and join in. And I went there and Mothership were playing and it was so much fun. The room was packed. Stramash, by the way, I think it is a former church, as so many venues in Scotland are. If not, it just massively looks like one, massively resembles a church. And I was sort of watching from one of the top levels and it was just this sea of people all dancing. And it was all like funk and disco and Motown, just a lot of like really class 70s tunes and then a bit of like Bruno Mars in there thrown in for good measure. It was a really, really fun time. And the pipes on the lead girl are absolutely second to none. She is incredible. So I was really excited for Mothership to be in the Clutha so we could do some boogieing. They come on, song 1, I'm up. I slam my tennis down. I'm like, right, dancing, off we go. And it was such a movie moment where I looked over and, you know, the reason we got up is because there was this old lady dancing that was, lady of vintage rather, how coarse of me, as a lady of vintage dancing. And I've seen her a few times before. She's often at the Clutha and she fucking shakes a tail feather. She will always dance and her moves are slick. She is a really natural freestyler, which sounds like such an easy thing to do. It's not easy. Freestyling is hard. To make it look good is hard. We all saw Renata Bliss. She looked like shit. This woman looked brilliant. She just has such a way about her. She really is like, knows her own body when she's on the dance floor, and I love that. So that was our impetus to get up from the bench and get on the dance floor and start dancing with her. And I was looking across at Sophia Newen and we were all just really letting loose. There was no self-consciousness whatsoever. We didn't care. We were just moving to the music and like spinning each other around. It's like, this is what it's about. This is the vibe. I love to dance in public, and I do feel like there's a significant lack of dancing in England, and it's way more common up here to just break out into dancing, and I love that. So that was fantastic. However, my second problem cropped up because I was a bit too vigorous, and I thought I had more in me given how much fucking Zumba I've been doing recently, but apparently not, because I was jumping up and down and doing all the business, and I started to feel a little bit gassy. Everyone, I just felt a bit gassy. And after I sat down, I was like, oh, it's actually also quite warm. It's quite warm, thick air, and I'm feeling a bit gassy. So I was like trying to straighten my posture. I also wasn't wearing tight clothing at all. I'd made a real point of wearing clothing that I could move in because my skirt that I was wearing was quite big for me. And it was also low-waisted, so it wasn't like pressing against my tummy or anything. And then just a football shirt. So in theory, completely fine. Also tights. But again, the tights were very elasticated. It wasn't as if they were like constricting me. You know, there was no reason for me to feel so uncomfortable in my skin as I did at that moment. But I was like really trying to readjust my posture and doing my deep breaths. And I went, no, I just don't feel good. I went, I'm just going to step outside 5 minutes, having a bit of a hot flush. And I stepped outside and it was as warm outside as it was in. So that was no reprieve for me. I was like, fuck, we're having a repeat of the Paris situation. Fuck's sake. And I came back and I was like, no, I actually do feel like I could be sick at this table. And so I had my first time of kneeling down at the toilets in the Clutha. It had to come at some point and spend enough time in that place. It was only a matter of time until I had hands on either side of the bowl, just praying like, please, I promise I'll never touch pizza again. Please. And I was there for some time. I was there until the end of Mothership's first set. So that was like a chunk of time. And it was, you know what? It was really nice to have such a fun soundtrack to being like, all these like horrible gas bubbles coming up, and I was like, I'm not sure that being sick is there. I'm not sure it's going to happen. And eventually I was like, I can't kneel here anymore. I don't think it's happening. I need to be in a different space. It's not making me feel good to have my nose so close to something that doesn't smell nice. So we went outside again, trying to get some air. We're in the like beer garden now rather than on the road side of it. And it was unfortunately like 5 minutes before they were trying to close the beer garden. And I was like, I don't feel good. So I was sitting at the table. I was like, no, not right. And then I was lying down on this sort of picnic bench, just doing my best, go, why? There's no reprieve. It's not getting any better. It's not alleviating anything. It just feels rubbish. It took another like 25 minutes for me to actually be able to sit up again and for the horrible like sicky burps to stop. So gross. I'm really sorry. And yeah, that was absolutely diabolical. Did not enjoy that at all. And it was as I sat up, the lead girl of Mothership came over and she was like, you all right? And I was like, yeah, just I think I danced too vigorously on a full stomach with 2 beers inside me. And she was like, oh, thank God, I thought you were having an epileptic fit and I'm first aid trained. So I was like, I'm going to have to dive in. I'm going to have to come over and help. I don't know what her first plan of action would have been, but it's nice to know there's always someone on side to help me out in a moment of crisis. All that to say that we did not stay for the match. We went home, but actually that worked out quite well because then we could just get our gym jams on and yell at the TV because it was not a pretty match for the first half. The Scottish defence was wanting somewhat, and the Moroccans were speedy. They were so speedy. They were just zippy, you know, and they left no time for the Scots to dilly-dally and weigh up their options and have a look around and see who's open and where they can go next. As soon as the ball was on them, they were running. And the same was not true the other way around until the second half. It wasn't until you imagine Steve Clark being like, what the fuck, run at them. And then it was a different story. And I am so impressed that they managed to keep the score at 1-0. I know they conceded within the first 70 seconds. That's not great. But I think it could have been so much worse. And you know what? I'll take 1-0. It could have been significantly worse. On the Saturday, I took Sophie to the institution that is the Barras. Now, we all know and love the Barras. It is a market in the east end of Glasgow. It's east. I don't know at what point does it become East End? Because I've not ventured like particularly far out, and if it's walkable from the station, is that really the end? It's in an eastern direction from Central, walkable, and you also pass the big Billy Connolly mural, which is very exciting for me every time because I love that documentary where he gets those murals done. I love it so much. There's also another one really close to the Clue. It's like between the Clutha and the hotel that my parents have been staying at whenever they come up to visit. So that's very exciting to see that art in real life. The mistake I made with showing Sophie the Barras is simply that I did not play her the song The Barras, which is all about the Barras. Also, it sounds really obvious now, but I only learned the reason it's called the Barras is because people used to bring stuff in their wheelbarrows. There you go, little fun fact piece of trivia for you there. But yes, so Sophie hasn't heard the song The Barras to the best of my knowledge. So this is a message to Sophie. Please pause this podcast. You can come back to it in a moment, but then go to Kieran's album Scotland Has It All and listen to the song The Barras, and then come back here because then you'll have a greater understanding of the musical history that the Barras has. But it is a really magical place, and it's good to go with cash because a lot of places don't have card. And you can find anything there. That's the point of the song, is like, there's a spot in Glasgow City that's more famous than something. I can't remember what the words are. It's more famous than the Mona Lisa's face. There we go, we're back on. It's been visited by royalty and something by the score. Everybody knows a Barras is the place. Oh, I started in such a low key. That's not good for me. Anyway, did you know that St. Peter lost the keys to yon great pearly gate? Out of job. Then someone said, Peter Denny greets, you can buy them at the Barras for a bob. Oh, okay, let's go on to this now. This isn't chronological, but Jordan and I, that like voice croak has just reminded me. Jordan was showing me these clips from No Mean City, which is this series of incredible charity concerts that Mackenzie Burns, who runs Red Lights, has put on over the previous few years to support Refuigi, which is a fantastic charity here in Glasgow. And he gets a sort of all-stars lineup of people from various bands to come on and play songs around a theme. And Jordan was showing me these and I was going, oh, I really wish I was in a band. It looks so cool. It looks so much fun. I really want to be in a band. He was like, why don't you just get on like findmeaband.com? That's how like Kieran and I found each other in the first place. It's like, well, okay, let's go now. My whole thing is that my voice is not well suited to very many genres of music. I'm aware that it's shrill and high. It's mostly like mix and head voice. I've just not got a real chest range. I think if I were to go into like punkier stuff, it would just be quite shouty and we'd have to have a really, really limited range because I just don't have that vocal support to get there. But Jordan was like, you know what you should actually look for is like symphonic metal, because that's all sort of airy fairy, high-pitched, siren-y sound noises. So I was like, oh, that's quite interesting actually. And he was playing some and then he was like, we found this one advert that was looking specifically for a vocalist for a symphonic metal album. They're like, we've already recorded tons of instrumentals, but we want someone to just be on the recordings. Which I was like, well, doesn't that defeat the object of being in person? He was like, no, this is great entry stuff. So you do these recordings and then after that you do the gigs. That would be ideal. And the advert specifically was calling out for a mix of. It sort of said, it's up to you as to what you can bring to this, but our preference is for someone who has a mix of like soft and harsh vocals. Jordan was like, don't worry, I can teach you to scream. And he was like, I can tell that the basics are there, like the fundamentals of being able to do it are there, because you're always doing a Britney Spears impression with vocal fry, and it's just using like that muscular technique applied to that. And then I was trying to do on FaceTime to Kieran, and I was like, okay, maybe not. Yeah, it wasn't as good as I thought I was gonna be. But the fact that I'm always going, oh baby, how was I supposed to know that something wasn't right here? That noise makes Jordan feel sick, but it's fine because he doesn't listen to the podcast, so it's fine. Unless I make this into a YouTube short, in which case maybe he will see this. At the bar, it's just magical. So you've got these great big like green sort of warehouse things and just every stall under the sun. The most famous of which these days I would say, oh no, there's two that are well known. One of them is Sophie Louise Illustrations. She's got a ton of merch. It's really exciting, and I've got one of the t-shirts, as does every girl in Scotland at this point. Like I see at least one of those t-shirts every time I go into the city, and it's the one that says Scott Girl Summer, and I love wearing it. And I was wearing it at the time. I wear it every time I go to the bar, because I'm like, maybe this time she'll be tending her stall and I get to see her, and then invariably it's like her friend or relative who's running it that day. I'm like, oh fuck, damn, didn't get to meet her in real life and show her my t-shirt. I have also been on her story, which is exciting. So I was wearing that t-shirt, but we went to the other most famous stall as well, which was the Cowboy stall. I can't remember what the official name of it is, but you can smell the real leather from a mile away. And it's one of those that has like an actual built structure rather than just being like table and marquee type thing. And it has this wall of artisanal, like properly crafted genuine cowboy boots by size, and they're all so intricately decorated, so beautiful. There's every color you can imagine. They're just stunning. They do cost an arm and a leg, but you know, you're getting the proper pucker here. And the lady who was running the shop that day saw my t-shirt. She was like, oh my god, love your t-shirt. I love Sophie Louise, she's so cool. She was like, well, you know, I've got one, but I'm American, so you know, don't tell anyone. I was like, well, I'm English. She went, oh, that's worse. That's worse. I don't think you should be wearing that. I was like, okay. It was all in jest. It was tongue-in-cheek, Danielle. It was fine. What else do we see at the Barras? Oh, so I got a couple of end bags. Average price £6, which is fantastic. One of them I got, and it was my magenta colour, and that's lovely, so I can wear it with my grandma magenta clothes. The other one was gunmetal. The reason I got it is because I've got the Oriole Ball this weekend. Whoop, whoop. Will we ever find out who the headliners are before the event? Probably not. Probably not, which is a shame because I really like to know ahead of time so I can revise my lyrics. But that's fine. But I was going to bring my chainmail bag, as I did for all the balls I've been to previously. But that thing is falling apart, as chainmail things I want to do. I've had a chainmail dress break. I've had a chainmail t-shirt break. Not t-shirt, like a sort of vest cowl neck break quite recently. That was, to be fair, I wore that to Bird and I was dancing vigorously, so that was kind of to be expected. And my chainmail bag just over the years has kind of fallen apart. You know, one link goes and then that leads to sort of every link in its vicinity also breaking down, so that's a shame. So I got this gunmetal bag because I'm also planning on wearing gunmetal shoes, so that was a win for me. I also got I got a red leather jacket. If mum's listening to this, no, I didn't buy a single thing, and I am being very shrewd with my financial choices. For anyone else listening, it's a really sick jacket, but it's really cool. And Sophie got a couple of things as well. She got some tops. She got a really sick skirt. She got this like black mesh skirt that also has this fuchsia underlay, and it just looks so cool. And we got back to the flat and we're like, Jordan, sit down, it's fashion show time. This poor boy's like, hey, just give me a second. We're like, no giving a second, the fashion show starts now, it's happening. And he had to sit in the living room. We played Madonna and we both walked in and we were being very like model, straight face, presenting handbag, but wait a second, what's inside the handbag? It's a can of Iron Brew energy drink that we were given for free on Socky Hall Street earlier on. Here you are, Jordan, happy birthday. And we were getting really into it, and then I showed Jordan my jacket. He was like, that is such a good jacket. It's such a good jacket. And then Sophie tried it on, and then Jordan tried it on, and it looked great on all of us. And then Jordan's like, wait, hang on, let me go and get my jacket. Sophie's like, hang on, let me go and get my jacket as well. And we were all like swapping each other's leather jackets. I was like, again, a movie moment. I'm living in movie moments right now, and it feels so good with all of us just like doing our modeling, trying on each other's leather jackets. Jordan's one is hefty. That is a heavy jacket with one of those like buckle belts that like goes around the bottom. That's heavy duty. That's a winter jacket. And he was like, I don't know if it's necessarily my style, you know, I sort of have my graphic tees and my jeans and my cap, and I was like, yeah, like an indie director, an A24 director. So I don't know that the leather jacket necessarily fits into that aesthetic right now, but who's to say never? You know, once this heat waves die down, which it will eventually, that could be his new thing. He could be the guy who wears baseball bat and comically hefty, comically like thick leather jacket. I think that could happen for him. After the fashion show, Sophie and I got our kit together and we went up to Loch Long for one of the wild saunas. It's the one that I've been to before. I think we went in like February or March. It was cold and it was nighttime when we went, and it was a really nice day. It was the 4 of us, so it was me, Kieran, Jordan and Lucy. And she'd suggested we go wild swimming. Kieran was like, absolutely fucking not, but I will counter offer you wild sauna. So we all went along. You know, it's a nice drive up the road there. You get to see the beautiful hills and things. You go past Loch Lomond first, and then essentially there's just like a small strip of land between the 2 lochs. It takes 15 minutes to get from one lake to the other. And got to Loch Long, and it's like this little hobbit caravan, like circular sort of what would you even call it? I mean, it sort of feels like you're on the inside of a log, and then you've got this beautiful big circular glass window, and you can see the other side of the lake, which is gorgeous. Unfortunately, there was a bit of deforestation, so the view was slightly less gorgeous than I remember it being. But also the water was a really nice temperature. Now, because I'm really used to going in the water at this point, I found it quite mild. I've had way worse, particularly on Skye. Skye was cold. This was quite tolerable for me. You know, so maybe Sophie found it cold, but I certainly didn't. Because I'm a veteran. I'm a veteran of this, so you know, I'm hardly a beginner to being in cold water now, because I'm acclimatized to being in Scotland now. Yeah. What a wank thing to say. So I did not to be a wanker. I was playing into the wank a bit there, but actually I did find it quite pleasantly mild. And there was a tub as well, which is great. There's a good group of people. Originally, I'd accidentally booked onto something that's supposed to be a private booking, and the guy was like, "I'm not sure how this has actually been possible. This is a website error, but would you mind moving to a different one?" So I was like, "Fuck, is it going to be rammed full of people?" And it was quite cozy, but everyone was really fun. So that was nice, as people often are with this kind of thing. And there's one guy who was really into saunas. He's like reading sauna magazines and the sort of science behind it and all this kind of thing. He was massively into it. And it was just a really lovely time. And afterwards, you know, we're packing up. We're like, where should we go for dinner? We go to that pub that's nearby that they filmed part of Black Mirror at, you know, the Loch Henry episode where... oh, what's her name? Monica Dolan. It turns out to be like an axe murderer or something. Anyway, we decided against that because the guy was like, oh, there's actually a really nice local restaurant that is nearby and does sort of takeaway, but also has the bistro side of it. So we went there, and it was called something Kumara. That's it, Kumara. I thought he was saying Cubana, and I thought it was going to be a Cuban restaurant. I was like, how fitting, because Kieran's currently in Miami. We can both be eating Cuban cuisine at the same time. No, Kumara, which did give an opportunity for Sophie to try her first Cullen skink, albeit Cullen skink gnocchi, which is a really great combo. That was tasty ducks. That was nice. So we had our Cullen skink and then meandered home, and we had such a lovely drive, just shooting the shit, just, you know, with all the beautiful views outside the window. And Sophie said so many profound things, and I don't want to cheapen them by revealing all of them and also misremembering them because my memory shot to shit. But one thing she said that is really staying with me and is making me feel so elated is about seeing yourself in a new light as a result of ascribing new words to yourself. Now, I've spoken before about the fact that in week 2 of therapy, my therapist told me that she thought that I was a very curious person, and that rocked my world. And we were sort of talking about why it is that that reframing, that's what I'm looking for, the reframing of myself as being a curious person has impacted me as much as I have. And part of it is the fact that it's not something that can be kind of applauded by someone else particularly naturally, in the way that, you know, I would first and foremost see myself as being a smart person and a funny person, and smartness can get applauded by getting good grades and getting good feedback from teachers and being teachers' pet and all the rest of it, and funniness gets the feedback from people laughing. But curiosity, it's not a sort of transactional thing, like it's just for your own benefit, but I think that then does lead to being funnier and being smarter. I think it's a great starting block. But also, I'd just sort of taken my own intelligence for granted and not really thought about the fact that the reasoning behind me going to the top university in the world and studying French to such a ridiculous level, it wasn't out of vanity, and it wasn't out of getting good feedback from teachers. It was because of my curiosity and my passion for the subject, and that was something that kind of did get a little bit lost at that point in time when I was like in my second year of uni and feeling like shit. I just needed reminding that curiosity was the thing behind it all. Curiosity is the thing that makes me a good friend, and it makes me an interesting person to be around. It makes me a person with ambition. You know, that's my starting point that I'd kind of lost sight of. And it just really rocked my world when my therapist was like, you are at your core curious. And I love that. I love knowing that about myself, and giving myself my flowers for it, if that makes sense. And Sophie was like, I've had a similar thing where I've discovered that I'm a person that is excited about things. I've started to reframe things as being excited, because for so long I thought I was being anxious about things. And actually the way that the body experiences anxiety and excitement are so close to each other, neurologically, biologically speaking. You know, they kind of engender similar responses. And as a result, a lot of the time we go, oh, that means I'm scared. I'm scared about this thing. I'm anxious about this thing. I'm worried. I'm hesitant, all these things. And actually what you are experiencing is just looking forward to it. She was talking about, you know, going on this solo holiday and having nerves, but going, actually, are these nerves? Let's put these in the court and question them. Is it nerves? Or am I just actually excited? Am I excited at the prospect of going away on my own and doing this really exciting thing, learning a new skill, meeting new people, staying in a new place? Is it that? And then as soon as she said, no, it is excitement, she could then relax into it and really luxuriate in the feeling of excitement. And I think that is such a wonderful thing. That's so wonderful. She's also big into journaling now. And I was like, fuck, I need to get back into my journaling, because that diary is dusty right now. I've not used it in a while. I was trying to like update on everything that happened last year, because I did not touch the diary for all of 2025. So I'm like trying to cram in everything that happened and then just getting hand cramp, being like, fuck's sake. Because the point of the diary is more supposed to be, when I started it was to practice my anecdotes, because I was thinking about this like Radio 4 show that Ivo Graham went on, where he was reading, and it wasn't just him, but that was the episode I heard, where you have to read your diary from when you were younger, and he was being really funny about like not having read his Dostoevsky and all the rest of it when he was at uni. And I was like, okay, well, I need to start like practicing being funny in this book in case I ever go on Radio 4. But then that also helped me sort of rehearse my anecdotes for when I was in a social situation, in order to tell them in the best way. Because I'd started to feel at the time like I was not telling them in the most impactful, punchy, memorable, funny way. Like I'd kind of lost the spark a little bit with telling my story. So this was like an opportunity for me to practice that. And the diary like entries that I kept in 2024, they're pretty funny. They're pretty questionable sometimes, but they are funny in delivery, if not in content. Sometimes quite bleak in content, but sometimes great. There was a lot of great stuff going on in 2024. So Sophie is like, she's been journaling a lot, and she wrote in her diary that she feels really lucky to have a friend that is so curious. Oh, how nice is that? How nice is that? That's the nicest thing. That's the nicest thing in the entire world. And you know what? I feel so lucky to have a friend that is so excited and exciting. So exciting. And she's like a new woman. Now she's locked into Germany. It's like an entirely different person. Just the zest for life is so... It's contagious. It's so nice to be around, but also you just feel like, I'm so happy for you being in this mindset, this frame of mind. Oh, it's so nice. It's so nice seeing your friends go through a period of like regeneration, rebirth, renaissance. Oh, is the best ever. Particularly also if you've had that yourself and you know what it feels like, to see someone else experience it is really nice. Because we were talking about tattoos. Now I can say this pretty confidently, I'm never going to get a tattoo because I don't want to, and I'm scared of needles, and I just don't think I could ever commit to like one design, because I think my aesthetic tastes have changed so much over the course of my life that I don't think I could ever pick something that I'm gonna still be satisfied with in 5 years time, let alone in 50 years time. So that just isn't a thing that's ever going to happen for me. But you know, whenever I have conversations with people about what tattoo I would get, I do have my answer ready, which is I would get K183, which is really wank. That's the code for one of Mozart's symphonies. And the reason I would have that is not as wank as it sounds. It's because that was the soundtrack for when I was rehearsing Amadeus, which is one of the happiest periods of time in my life. More than anything, because I'd had such a shit period of time in the couple of years that had run up to that, and that felt like I was the type of person that I thought I would never become. I thought I was just going to be miserable for the rest of my life, which is what depression does to you, where you're just like, well, this is it. This is what I'm saddled with the rest of my life. I'm going to wake up every day just feeling sick and like I don't want to be here. I don't want to be on earth. And it never occurred to me in my wildest fantasies that I would ever get to a point where where I would love life again. I just didn't think that was ever going to happen. Uh-oh. I just didn't think that was ever going to happen again. Oh dear. And this is so wank. When I got back to uni, I particularly because also like I'd had so many friendships break down at uni. I'd been in this big group and just had felt so lost in it. Like I felt so replaceable. Like I wasn't a pillar of it. Like I could not turn up to an event and people would notice I wasn't there. And came back to uni and I was like, it's going to be different this time. I'm going to be so sociable and outgoing like I used to be. I did used to be this long ago. And then I found that again. And that felt amazing to be included in stuff and to be part of the group and, you know, to have these new friendships with, particularly with the Masters people, also with lovely Molly Jones and with the cast of Amadeus. That was another big thing. Obviously was the fact that I was doing this play, which was so great because that meant that the majority of days in a week I was going to rehearsals because I was one of the leads, which in itself was a great ego boost. But the fact that I was like having to get up and go out and socialize with people that frequently without having to organize it myself was really nice, and be in a scenario where there's like multiple people there, because like so often when you're having to organize time to hang out with friends, it is 101 like room 101. It is one-on-one, and that in itself is great, but not to have the variety of having sometimes where you are in a group. I miss that. I miss being in a group quite a lot, which I get is part of the thing of me not managing to find the right hobby for me yet up here. But that was great because I was like hanging out with my new friends all the time in these rehearsal spaces. That felt really good. And as I say, I got a great part in it. My academic life was going so much better at that point in time. Like I'd been really quite worried that I was actually a dunce, secret dunce. And the feedback that my teachers had been giving me over the years had been completely null and void. They'd just been lying to my face. And actually I was a massive thicko. And then I got back to Oxford at that point in time and was awarded a scholarship, and which I had been before, but I just convinced myself they were doing it out of pity, which is like the self-esteem was on the floor. But I finally felt like I was earning my keep, because when I'd had the scholarship before, I was getting like a mix of high 2-1s and first, but like more 2-1s than first. At this point in time I was getting more first, and I was like, finally, okay, I feel like I'm actually earning my keep here and living up to the potential that clearly my tutors have known all this time that I do have. And that was so gratifying. And particularly there was one tutor that I was really scared of, scared of her. Still am, to be honest. I find her really quite intimidating. But I was like, I'm getting somewhere. Like I don't feel like I'm being told off all the time when I go to her office. I feel like I'm actually, you know, engaging and getting something out of this and getting a mix of obviously room for improvement, but still that positive that I didn't necessarily feel I was getting before. It was just a point in my life where everything was really coming up pod, and it so came together and proved to me that, you know, that the clouds do pass, and that I'm capable of being that person multiple times in my life. This isn't just going to be one high point. I know that I can return to being that on top of my game again and again. And, you know, my mental health will you know, it's not a constant. It can ebb and flow, but the good times can come back again. So that, and as I say, the soundtrack to that was Mozart's, I want to say Fifth Symphony. I've actually not thought about this in such a long time that I hope I'm naming the right symphony. But it's one goes da 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 da, which by the way, the remix on YouTube goes fucking hard, and we played that at the after party. So having come out the other side and reinvented myself so like thoroughly and completely, and been such a happy version of myself who is like indulging in that curiosity and excitement in life, it's really nice to see that happen to another person. It's so heartwarming and fulfilling to see another person go through that. So that was the best bit of the weekend. Like we went to the sauna, we went to the bars, we did all these fun things. The best part was seeing that person that Sophie is now. A tee-hee. On Sunday, the three of us being me, Jordan and Sophie, we went out for a lovely pub lunch, and then we went to the Barbie exhibition. And can I just say that Sophie is the best substitute for Kieran possible, because Jordan turned to me yesterday. We were sat watching telly and he turned to me and he was like, I think we're better as a trio. And I was like, what the fuck? You're just saying you don't like hanging out with me one-on-one. He was like, no, I think we get on super well hanging out one-on-one. But I think ultimately our dynamic needs a third person. And then he was like, when's Sophie coming back up? Sophie, if you're listening, you need to come back up now. Jordan's getting sad. I think the problem is that we're both quite like scatterbrained, and we're both very creative people, but it's hard to translate that into logistics a lot of the time. And it's often good to have a third person, not even to be the kind of that whips us into shape and makes us do the logistic things, but just to be a kind of panopticon, and by being in the room just inherently make us pay, but make us like actually do the things that we said we were going to do on that day. So having Sophie there was really great because just we melded so easily. All the personalities really combined in a really satisfying and nice way. It's really nice seeing people that you're friends with in separate circles becoming friends together. That feels really good. That was great. So like Jordan he was aware we were going to Barbie, and I want to take the credit where it's due. I had said to him ahead of time, do you want to come with us? And he was like, oh no, if you guys are having your like one-on-one time, old friends catching up type thing, I don't want to intrude. And then Sophie had said on day what, she was like, should we bring Jordan as well? Do you think Jordan will want to come with us? Can we bring Jordan? I was like, I've asked him, like, if you just even gently suggested it, he would say yes, which she did. And he was like, yeah, I'd love to come to Barbie. Love to come to Barbie exhibition. With the adverts are everywhere. I've wanted to go for such a long time. And also Sophie and I were massively in a big and huge way into the Barbie movies as children. Although she hasn't seen Diamond Castle, which was probably my favorite as a kid, because I remember really distinctly seeing that on the plane to Australia in 2010. Which I think was before it came out in the UK. And I was really excited to be ahead of the curve on that one. And I also think has the best music, because it's like about girls that write songs, and the magic is in their music. So, inherently the songs have to be quite good. And it has a song that Max and I used to sing at family gatherings. I obviously would make him, and he, stubborn little shit that he was, would try to get out of it. And then mum and dad would be like, no, be really nice, because there was a little harmony to it. So that was really sweet. And he did not enjoy doing that. But it was like, if I could wish for one thing, I'd take the smile that you bring. Wherever you go in this world, I'll come along. I'll come along. Together we dream the same dream. Forever I'm here for you, you're here for me. Whoa, whoa. Two voices, one song. Does everyone like that? Does everyone think I should be in a symphonic? Does everyone think I should be in a symphonic metal band? Yeah. Anyway, so what I will say about the Barbie exhibition though is they did not make enough of the movies, because I'm sure there's going to be so many girls in particular of our age group who are there because they were massive Barbie movie fans, and not Barbie movie Margot Robbie, Barbie movie, I'm talking Swan Lake, I'm talking Rapunzel, I'm talking Princess and the Pauper, I'm talking Island Princess, I am talking Barbie and the Diamond Castle. What were the other ones? Nutcracker, hello, Nutcracker. So they mentioned it once in the exhibition. That was when they had the big timeline of all the sort of innovations that have happened in the last 60 years of Barbie existing. And I was like, there's not going to be any like musical interlude of the songs or anything. But they did have all the outfits over the years, all the developments, all the different. They spent a lot of time talking about the head models, the head molds that they use for different styles of Barbie, and really putting emphasis on how diverse their Barbie range is. I think because they felt guilty that it took them such a long time to create the first non-white Barbie, because they were like, Barbie went to space before Barbie was ever black. So I think they were really trying to like cover their asses and be like, listen, we're not just blonde, is when they very tactfully were like, this is Christy, Barbie's black friend. Barbie has black friends, she does know black people. But they didn't have any Barbie movie stuff, which is such a shame because they're so great. They did, however, have the big box of photo opportunities, which had an interior light, and that was great for our photos, and the Instagram one looks really nice. Sophie and I also had a moment with such wet wipes when we were in the gift shop. We went to the gift shop before the exhibition, and there was a dream house in the middle, and there was a little girl playing with a doll in the dream house, and both of us were like starting to get a bit misty-eyed about it. And then I went, when does it end? All the enjoyment. She was like, no. It was emotional. Girlhood is such an emotional thing, and I really got to indulge in girlhood this week, which was super duper special. And then Sophie went home, and that sucked ass, and we need her back now because we need a 3. It needs to be a 3. Doesn't make sense for me and Jordan to be unsupervised. We need a 3rd. So Jordan and I are also at this moment in time getting massively back into Stathlets Flats in a big way. I forgot how excellent that writing is. It's just immaculate. Every line of dialogue is so perfect. In particular, I feel like we always brush over just how good Al is because he's essentially playing a straight man, but he's so weird. In any other show, he'd be the weird one. And it's just the way that he responds to every line directed at him sounds like he's doing like a GCSE French exam when they tell you to like add more detail, pad the runtime, show off your language skills more. It's when they go stuff like James Bond, and then Al goes, oh, I'm nothing like James Bond, although I do admire the lifestyle and would indulge in the opportunity for international travel. What? So good. He's a nutcase. It's so good. It also was great to see the football episode because every time I see World Cup stuff, it just makes me want to watch the football episode of Stathlets Flats again. Particularly the bit where he gets out the car and he goes, football in America, we are going crazy with support for the lads. We are kicking footballs in America. So good. So good. So well thought out. It's truly amazing. But the other thing we're massively into at the minute is Veep. Now, Jordan has got an HBO subscription at the minute. And he had said to me that he'd like been background watching Veep, like just putting it on when he's doing something. I was like, how does that even work? Because I've not watched it, but even I know it's like fast paced. He went, you just get swept along. You get swept along for the ride. It's very like experiential as a TV program. And obviously everyone is massively into the Armando train right now. When am I ever not on the Armando train? It was great seeing him on Taskmaster because it is like seeing a mirror. He's so me. Just the way that he thinks about everything, the way he acts, the way he talks, the things he finds funny in other people. I'm like, he is me. We have some kind of like kindred spirit thing going on. So I absolutely adore Armando Iannucci, and I haven't watched The Thick of It in a while. My difficulty with The Thick of It, I think, was just that when people talk about it, they're like, do you remember this episode? I'm like, I kind of don't. It just felt like all the episodes blended one into the next. All these plot lines were interweaving really intricately. I sort of don't remember it in chunks. So when people are like, oh, do you remember that bit? Kind of no. Like I remember the individual lines, individual moments, but it feels very Proustian to me to be a wanker about it. And I think there is a similar thing in Veep, but I think there are like tighter plot lines. It feels more I don't know. I mean, there definitely is that kind of side of it being for American TV and therefore needing more kind of distinct plot lines in the style of the classic sitcoms. But I don't even necessarily think that's a bad thing. That's not a detraction to it. I think it's so strong. And I love all the characters because they all suck. I love a TV show where everyone sucks. Like every time Jonah enters the room, perfect. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus is unbelievable. She's so great. That like infantile side of her that is so thin-skinned, contrasting with her just being like a colossal bitch and toying with everyone else and being like dictatorial to her staff. Just it is so good. But then being so vulnerable as well. Masterclass. I think it's a perfect TV show. I'm really enjoying it. I'm already like halfway through series 2. I'm whizzing through that shit at a rate of knots. A lot of my time this last week was dedicated to watching that. So that's exciting for me. And I know everyone's been telling me to watch it for ages. I'm glad I'm finally getting around to it. The other one on my list is obviously Girls, which Sophie's like, this is the time in your life when you need to watch Girls because they're the same age as us. And I love consuming media that is perfect for the point in time that I'm at now, which is what I had with Normal People. I think that's why that has stayed with me so much, is because I watched that between finishing school and starting uni, which, you know, the storyline follows Colin and Marianne as they finish school and go to uni. So it was like having these friends who are going through the exact same thing as me at the same time. In a not dissimilar setting. You know, Trinity is very like Oxford, as I now know, and also the way that Marianne had been such a dork at school and laughed at in that way, I was like, well, that's me. That's me, unfortunately. So that was such a comfort to be at the same period of time as these characters. And Sophie was like, Girls is about people who are in the first few years after leaving college. That's where we're at now. This is the period of time in your life that is the most pertinent to it, and you need to watch it now so that you aren't like watching it retrospectively. It needs to be a now thing, and everyone's talking about Lena Dunham at the minute. Like she is everywhere, so I do need to get into that. I will get into that. I will, once I finish Veep as well, which, how many series of that are there? Like, is that like 64 hours of TV or something like that I need to get through? Tough going. Also, while we're on media, let me also recap the books I've been reading recently, which I've not read any in the last week, but the week before that I read 3. I was whizzing through them. First of all, I read Hurdy-Gurdy, which is autocorrected to Hurdy-Curdy. That's not right. Hurdy-Gurdy, which is the story of a medieval monk during the Black Death. And to the best of my knowledge, this was written during the pandemic as a response to the pandemic. This guy sort of doing a kind of parody in the Black Death. My issues with it are twofold. First of all, I think when you're trying to publish an idea, and again, I hope I'm remembering this correctly, that it was like a quick publishing turnaround because it was in response to this kind of, news item, and therefore needed to remain within the news cycle of the pandemic, which granted went on for some time, but still publishing takes a while, is that I didn't feel that it necessarily went into the heart of the character as much, because it was responding so pertinently to the idea of a pandemic that I was like, it kind of didn't stir me in my heart. I didn't feel emotionally connected necessarily to the story, and I'm putting that down to, again, with the limited knowledge I have, I'm putting that down to the fact that it was such a quick turnaround, and had there been the opportunity for more development of the story, then there would have been a bit more heartstrings to it. I think that's the thing that's missing, especially when you're writing a book about death. Like it behooves it to have a bit of emotional pull to it that I didn't necessarily feel struck me enough. But also, I don't think I am particularly into my picaresque works. I'm not a big what's his name, Don Juan, the Don Juan play, Molière. Yeah, that one's not for me so much. That one, it just feels like that, all these distinct stories about Don Juan being an asshole kind of just doesn't do it for me that much. I don't like that kind of short story format of a novel or a play as much as having a through line and having, a consistent aim for the character, a consistent like ego and id and whatever else. Just it being that separate doesn't grasp me as much. So that book wasn't for me. What I did find interesting was the depiction of the kind of, what's it called? Like a female mystic from that period, where they would literally just like break them up into a part of the church and send some food underneath every day. And they would be the kind of sage mystic woman that you go to for visions, because obviously they were going insane because they were like trapped in a wall for 60 years, like Julian of Norwich. And they had a similar one in this book. That's an interesting idea to me. And I finished that book and I was like, you know what? I'm quite interested in this idea of women in medieval times. Let me move on to another book that I have on my bookshelf, which was called the something saints, the starving saints. And it was supposed to be about like a siege, and then these sort of visionary women come in who are sort of saint-like, and everyone's bowing and kowtowing to them and whatever else. And I was like, oh great, a lovely book about sort of religious mania and persuasion and desperation and famine, all these interesting ideas. And then I got to page 3 and I was like, oh fuck, it's a fantasy novel. And unfortunately, I'm just not interested in fantasy as a genre. If there's anything to do with spells, witches, like even knights are a massive turn on for me. I know they're in real life, but just the idea of a knight, I'm like, no thank you. Just any kind of like witchy warlocky stuff, not for me. I just can't do it. And it was, as soon as it started, I was like, these characters will have really strange names, and that's really disappointing for me. I was really excited about the book that I had imagined in my head, so slightly devastated not to read that. I also went to a charity shop in Lincoln when I was visiting Max and got a handful of books on the cheap, including Italo Calvino's If on a Winter's Night a Traveller, which I read. Did I read it in a day? I think I read it in like a day and a half, because I was like, I started it, went, I'm not going to enjoy this very much. I'm just going to have to like race through this to get it done because I want to move on to the next thing. So I rattled through it. Now the premise is so interesting. And here's what I think. I think I would have loved that book if I had read it in French. The reason I say that is because one of my favorite topics that I did at uni was about le nouveau roman, the new book, the new novel. Which was a movement in the 60s, see how much of this I can remember, that was about just completely shaking up what it means to write a novel. And one of the ones that I read was La Jalousie, which is kind of an untranslatable title because it's a pun in French, because it obviously means jealousy, but also it means a sort of Venetian blind window. And the idea is the whole time it's just describing this man and woman moving about this like plantation house on a banana plantation. And you're kind of like, well, what is the story then? Because all it's doing is describing what they're doing and the fact they're like sitting in the living room and there's 3 chairs there and 3 glasses and whatever else. And you're like, I can't work out what the story is. And it clicks like 2/3 of the way through. You're like, oh, this isn't a detached third person omniscient narrative voice. This is the voice of a character. This is like a body that's in this space. You know, it belongs to a person. It's not just the universe, like recording what's going on. And the voice belongs to the husband who is convinced that the wife and this other man are having an affair. And so it's all framed not only through the jalousie window, but also through his jealousy of how he's interpreting how they're hanging out and what's going on. That rocked my world. If I read that in English, I think I would have hated it. But the fact that I was reading it in French in the environment of having to study it and evaluate it and sort of contextualize it within the history of French literature, that to me was very exciting. And I think had this If on a Winter's Night, a Traveller been one of those books, I think I would have loved it. Like the other ones were like, one of them is just written entirely in the second person, is describing you being the character, and one of them by Natalie, it's like Natalie Perrault or something like that, is about it's just going into like micro detail. So she spends like 60 pages describing 1 second. Like it goes into heavy detail and stuff. So again, just breaking down the fundamentals of what we think of as being novel writing. And this was the same. So this one was also written in second person, and it was like a meta book. The idea was, it goes, you're sitting down now with If on a Winter's Night, a Traveller by Italo Calvino, and you're getting comfortable in your chair, and you've just bought this from the bookshop and you're really excited to read it, and you've got your cup of coffee next to you and you're really excited to read. And it was like describing your process of reading the book. And then it started to sort of tell the story, like, and you're reading it now, and it's about a guy who's on a train station platform, and the mist is clearing, and there's people on the train station platform, and he decides to go here, and you're thinking, oh, I've read books like this before, I think I know what's going. So it's describing your process of reading another book. But then the whole idea is that you get to a point in the novel where suddenly there's a misprint and all the pages are the same. From that point onwards, you're like, fuck, I've got to go back to the bookshop. And that sets him off on this chain of events where he keeps being given another book that's promised to be the book before, but then that leads him on to another book, which again ends in a misprint or is heavily censored or whatever else, and he ends up like traveling the world. So it's like, it's a mad idea. I just think the conceit did not warrant it being that long, in all honesty. I think the like chain connection went on for too long. I kind of lost sight of what it was, and I kind of don't think there was enough clarity in the meta narrative to make it clear where he was going or what the character's aims were. I think it was a really interesting starting point, and as I say, had it been written in French, I probably would have been fucking obsessed with it. Then after I read that, I read Novel in a Year, which is a book about how to write a novel, because maybe me, I'm like, well, maybe I'll write a novel now. Maybe I'll join a symphonic metal band, and maybe I'll write a novel. This is the point that we're at emotionally for me. That door slamming just really made me jump. So it had all these exercises, and it was a sort of almost a memoir of the fact that this lady, whose surname I'm worried I'm going to pronounce wrong, Louise Doughty, not sure. She was a Telegraph columnist who did this project called Novel in a Year, where she would give people exercises focusing on specific techniques, whether that's like dialogue or self-editing or plotting or these kinds of things. And then people would submit their entries in sort of the comment section or whatever else. And it, and then she would like evaluate the entries that people had sent in and show what went well and what didn't, and how you can use this to build your novel over the course of a year. And most of it, what it boils down to is that you just need to allocate yourself time, because you're not going to write a novel unless you specifically say, these are my hours in which I'm going to be writing. I'm not going to have distractions. She was like, my biggest tip is to have a pot of mince, because if I start thinking I'm hungry, then I'm going to get distracted and go and eat, and then that's going to kill my flow. Whereas if I have mince, that's going to tide me through to the next meal time, so I'm not constantly getting up and down and losing my train of thought. So it just seems like the majority of the effort goes into actually sitting down and doing it. And you know, I've started to potter about with a bit of creative writing. It's easier said than done, I will say, actually, and it's also quite difficult not to just write as myself. Everything turns into a diary eventually. I'm like, stop doing that. That's not creative. Anyway, so that was an interesting book and some food for thought, and we'll see whether I actually ever act on those thoughts. Tuesday morning, Jordan and I did a little bit of filming with Mackenzie. It's just really nice to be included. It's nice to just go somewhere with a person and do a task. So that was good. And keep a lookout for when that comes out, because that was a really fun thing to do first thing in the morning. It was also boiling and I needed a wee the whole time. And my phone battery was shocking. My phone went down to 0 by 11 a.m. And all I was using was like map and video, and it tanked. It killed the whole thing. My battery's gone to shit anyway. I had to recharge my phone 3 times yesterday. That's crazy. I should not be having to do that. And also the charger itself is now, you know, when they go a bit funny and you have to like enter it at a certain angle to get it to work, that's doing my nut. And it didn't charge overnight last night, so I woke up with like 20%, and that did not impress me much. Shania Twain. I went to James Acaster last night, which has been on my bucket list for such a long time. And I live in constant fear that one day he's just going to turn around and be like, that's it, I'm not doing live shows anymore. I thought that was going to happen after Cod Lasagna Hate Myself 1999. I thought that was it. I thought that was him saying like, I actually have realised I don't enjoy stand-up, I'm not going to do it anymore. I was staggered when he came back with Heckler's Welcome. I was even more staggered when he came back with his latest show, which is called James Acaster. And he blew my fucking mind. Again, not dissimilar to the Nouveau Roman, where he's like shaking up what it is to do a stand-up show, because the whole conceit is that you're not at a James Acaster stand-up show, you're at a James Acaster tribute by Craig Simons, the UK's premier James Acaster tribute act. And as such, he really lent into that as a conceit by having a Luther Vandross tribute as his opener, which to begin with, I was a little disheartened, because I was really excited to see who his opener would be. I was really excited to be introduced to a new wacky comedian, because, you know, James used to be Milton Jones's opener back in the day, and I think he had Sam Campbell open for him. So I feel like he has really good taste at openers. So I was like, I kind of was looking forward to having a new person to be a fan of on a comedy level. But then as soon as he had the Luther Vandross person on, I was like, okay, yeah, checks out. And everyone else in the audience was very confused. I don't think anyone else had particularly read the blurb of what this was or heard James do interviews about it and know that the whole point is that he's playing a tribute act version of himself. So there was a lot of talking at normal talking volume from the audience and looking at phones, which I was like, nope, I don't fuck with that. Luckily, everyone calmed down for the James bit, and he has some absolute corkers. The fact that within the first 10 seconds of him coming on stage, the hula hoop rolls in, and he's then hula hooping. I was like, okay, we're off to a winner. This is going to be utterly spectacular. And it was so great. However, that is the hottest I have been in a long time. That theatre traps heat like nothing else. And I know the theatres are old. I know it's difficult to put stuff in. But my God, could we not have put like a standing fan just at the back, just blowing kind of side on for the audience? It was so hot. It was really hot to the point where I was like willing it to be over just so that I could get outside. And it was a nice, cool evening at that point. And I didn't want to will it to be over because James was doing such a good job. It's like I could bite the air. It was just genuinely like jelly. It was horrendous. And we were so packed in there. And I was really high up. I was in the nosebleeds because I'm a cheapskate. And, you know, looking down and craning forwards, and my back was going and I was boiling. So very uncomfortable viewing position. I can only imagine it would have been even worse for the big dog. Can you imagine if Kieran had been there trying to squeeze his legs into it? Because theatre seats are tiny anyway. He can't squeeze his legs in that, and he hates being too warm. He would have been suffering. I think he would have left midway through because that was a struggle to be that warm in there. And James is wearing a full tux as well, so, and under the lights obviously. So you just think that must have been boiling. But I'm so glad that I got to see James. As I say, I've always been worried that this was going to be it and he's not going to perform anymore. So the fact that I have managed to see him is a real relief to me. And now it's the only thing left on my bucket list is to go and meet Billy Connolly before he kicks it as well. Please don't ever kick it. Please don't. I live in constant fear. I think that's just about everything from me. All that remains to say is continue to tune into Lomond Radio on a Tuesday between 10 and 12 for the mid-morning show with me, Charlotte Wilson. And also keep your eyes peeled for a very exciting, very big announcement coming up at the minute. I'm not in control of when this announcement's coming up, but I've been told it's happening imminently, and I've been holding off talking about it on social media because it's coming up. But it's very exciting and I can't wait, and it's going to be happening next month. So I will be posting about it everywhere and you will certainly not miss it. But thank you so much for listening to yet another episode 8 of the podcast. We're whizzing through these now. And please recommend it to a friend if you enjoyed it. Please leave a like, leave a comment both on Spotify and on all the social media pages. Give us a lovely review, and by us I mean me. This is a one-woman outfit, and let us do, oh my god, I can't believe I nearly forgot to do my words. I don't think I have a dog fire hydrant. Oh, do you know what? Okay, fuck it. My dog fire hydrant is the fact that all the Scottish fans in Boston and Miami have been putting cones on everything. And I know the Miami cops at first that was not kosher for them. But they've relaxed now because everyone loves Tartan Army fans. And that's lovely. That's my dog fire hydrant of the week. I had to really think about that. Okay, word of the week. We're going to go with protean. Protean? Of or resembling Proteus in having a varied nature. Oh, got a bunged up nose. Sorry about that. Or ability to assume different forms. Protean. All that remains to say is that I, Poddy Wilson of the Podcast, love you.